heard? Just confirm that I can be heard so that I can start the class. So today we are starting with a new topic about women, the social, political, and economic issues that they face. This is a part of paper 2, but as you all know and are aware, that women is a major topic for essay also, for essay writing also. And those who have sociology as a part of their second paper or their main paper can also use this knowledge. I have divided my lecture into 3 parts, and we are going to take the economic part first, because this is the part which has repeatedly made its presence in the question paper since 2015. So we are going to talk about the social help groups today. And as a topic, I'm going to try and finish it for you. I was also thinking of taking the age of marriage being increased to 21, and a bill which has been introduced in the Lok Sabha on the 6th of January and which has now been marked to the standing committee. It will be a preliminary question, but I don't think that along with the social help group, I'll be able to complete it for you today. So probably we'll take it tomorrow. If we go into the questions which are based on gender, time and again, they have asked you about the self-help groups, about how microfinance is being made available to rural women. A second question which has made an appearance is the National Commission for Women. These are the questions which have come from 2015 onwards. Of course, there is the whole role of social disadvantage of women. And although we, and when I say we, I include myself in it, we form about 48% of the Indian population, and for the world as a whole, 49.57% of the world's population is women. So 50-50 we are, and yet it is almost every time asked, what is the role of women in society? I wonder why this gender-based question is not being asked to the men also. But since we are always considered to be the weaker part of the population, this question is repeatedly posed. A more important and relevant question for me would not what is the role of a woman in society, but what are the choices that you make available to the woman is more important. So other than the role, like for example, this year you had a question in the essay, hands that rock the cradle rule the world. And so you find in literature and imminently, whenever women have to be given credit, it is not for themselves per se, although that is changing even in the media. But you find that the role of a mother is always glorified vis-a-vis the woman herself in her own achieving role. Perhaps because there's a gender bias, there's a way of looking at things. So let me just tell you how I have tried to compartmentalize the lectures. The first part we are going to do with social help groups, microfinances, the schemes for the government of India, women's role as entrepreneurs, and you'll be shocked to know that as entrepreneurs, we constitute only about 6.1% of the entrepreneur population of our country, which is dismal. For startups, we are only about 3%. So we need to take it forward. Then we are going to do about that. Then we come to the political issues. We'll come on to the entire set of equality and the kind of equal opportunities that have been given to us. So the political aspect of it. And then we will go into the social aspect of it. But what are the disadvantages that we face vis-a-vis the others? So like I started off with some statistics, 49.57% of the world population is constituted of women. In India, we constitute 48%. We are at the rate of 1,020 per thousand males. So we are more in number at present, but that is a general assessment. We are as low as 776 per thousand Equality Index, an index which is being realized at the global level, participated by 189 countries. India stands at 123 out of the 189 countries. In terms of global literacy, the world literacy stands at 86.3%. India stands at 77.70%. But if we break up the male and female, then the ratio for male literates in the world is 90%. For females, it's 82.7%. If you look at India, the male literacy 0.70%. For females, it is 70.30%. All these are statistics for 2021, which will be helpful for you in 2022. So kindly note those statistics. So, and then of course, if we go into what are the issues of social relevance to us and those that really make us feel small, is that there is a rape against women for every 16 minutes in this country, and that every third woman is a victim of domestic violence or some kind of violence having been made against her. These are very high statistics considering the world demography for women. But if you look at the literacy rate and if you look at the sex ratio, we are almost at par with the developed world. And considering that we are a third world country, it speaks well about us. Now, coming to the first part of our topic today, which is the self-help groups. The statistics which I've given for you are for women in general. So please use them as part of your essay. You must remember, whenever you write an essay, your essay needs to be loaded, particularly those with social or economic part in them, should have statistics as a major part of the answer paper. But today, then, we are not doing essay, we are doing paper 2. So let's come back to the self-help groups of women. To start off with the self-help groups, the concept of SG, the concept of self-help groups is as early as 1970, although at that point of time they were not called SHGs. So self-help groups are a part which are in consonance with India's concept of a Atmanirbhar Bharat. We are talking of self-help groups where women are in domination. And if we look at the pandemic which has just passed, about 103 billion people were put behind and locked up for almost 40 days. And at that point of time, the self-help groups have made their presence felt in the Indian economy. And this is as per the tweet from the government of India. And the part which I'm going to right now cover is taken from the net by the worldbank.org. So if you Google that, you will get the details which I'm talking of. So you know that this is coming straight from the World Bank data. So keeping that in mind, we are talking about the self-help groups which are now being sponsored by the National Rural Livelihood Mission. I repeat, by the NRLM, which is the National Rural Livelihood Mission. This National Rural Livelihood Mission started in 2011. We will go into the history of it as we move through the lecture. For you, it is sufficient to tell you that the World Bank is giving us $750 billion. $750 billion to support this program. It is none other than Bill Gates and Melinda who are supporting this World Health Program. But that you need not mention. It's just sufficient to mention that $750 billion have been committed to the National Rural Livelihood Mission, started off in 2011. As of now, we have 67 million women under the SHGs. 67 million are under the SHGs and the number of SAGs stands at 6 million. I think that I should write that right at the top. So $750 billion by the World Bank. As aid for the SAGs. Under it, 67 million women have been covered. Six million SAG groups in India. Prime Minister Modi in his speech said that in August 21, 1,628 crores was disbursed or given to these self-help groups. This is also a part of the data which has come to. There is another link which I will give you. Down to Earth has also written about self-help groups, and it's written in great detail about what are the lacunas which are facing the self-help groups and how we can make it better. It will give you a good perspective. All the points have almost been covered in the lecture, but it will make you a good read. So you can take the data from there also if you like. So like I said, coming back here, we are 67 million women which have been covered under the self-help groups. There are about 6 million self-help groups in India across 28 states and 6 union territories. The domination of self-help groups is more in the south. So Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka are dominated by self-help groups. This is something which you should know. These 6 million self-help groups have leveraged or saved about 1.6 billion rupees. And further, they have taken a 37 billion credit from commercial banks. The NRLM, or what is called the National Rural Livelihoods Mission Program, is the government's major flagship for poverty reduction in rural areas. So during the pandemic, what has happened is that these self-help groups from all the states combined, and this is a tweet from the government of India, have made about 19 million masks. I am trying to take you forward from the concept of just self-help groups in rural India, bringing it contextually to the COVID situation. Because now when you're going to get a question, although self-help groups have been repeated twice in the context of microfinance, now they will specifically have an input for how they are shouldering the responsibility or taking the economic process forward during the pandemic. So because there's a lot of data on it, and because the government has been very successful, this type of a question is likely to come to you, and therefore I'm focusing the first part on this. So this data you will not get anywhere else. That is why I've tried to put it together for you. So this is a tweet from the government of India, which says that these self-help groups have made some 9 million masks. Some 20,000 self-help groups have been involved in this process across 27 Indian states. This is for the pandemic. When I said that there were 67 million women across 28 states and 6 union territories, that was a statistics for the whole of India and for self-help groups as a whole. This I'm talking of 2021 for you. in the context of the pandemic. So about 20,000 self-help groups have produced about 19 million masks, and these 20,000 self-help groups have been spread around 27 Indian states. Not only that, they have produced some 100,000, या आप 1 लाख कह सकते हैं, 100,000 liters of sanitizer and 50,000 liters of hand wash. They set about 10,000 community kitchens across the country because they were asked to feed the rural poor. Not only feed the rural poor, the migrants too. So the self-help groups have come forward not only to provide the PPP gear, which you heard, the Bangalore-based self-help group did a wonderful job in supplying their PPE gear, then sanitizers, then masks, and also community kitchens were established by these self-help groups. About 10,000 of these community kitchens have run almost over through the whole period of 2020-21 to provide food to the migrants and to others who were below the poverty line. If you go back to Kerala, there is a self-help group which is called the Kudam Bashri. Kudam Bashri is a state-owned SHG. It's a state-owned self-help group. It has about 4.4 million women working across Kerala. During the pandemic, Kudam Bashri established about 1,300 kitchens, 1,300 kitchens for supply of food. They also set up a floating market. और इसकी फोटो आप देख सकते हैं ये worldbank.org में ये floating market का फोटो दे सकते हैं. Floating markets are very common in countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, where water transport and these markets can be seen and a lot of people go and buy. But for India, it is something new. So in the district of Allah Puza, these floating markets were set up during the pandemic to provide necessary everyday item to the people. Then at the same time, these self-help groups have acted as awareness leaders, particularly in Jharkhand. They help to identify pockets of people who were below the poverty line and almost dying of hunger. So they made the police aware about these groups so that the food could be supplied to them. Then even in a state like Bihar, where we have the self-help group called the Jivika, जीविका ने हेल्पलाइन सेट करके सबको बताने की कोशिश करी कि आप मास्क पहनिए, किस तरह से आप ब्रेक द चेन कर सकते हैं. उस इंफॉर्मेशन का डिसेमिनेशन particularly in rural areas has been done by Jivika, and this we are talking of the state of Bihar. I am giving you statistics for the whole of the country so that your answers can be a little different from what everybody else is going to write. They also act as bank sakhis. और जब ये बैंक सखी बनते हैं तो ये क्या करते हैं कि on behalf of the bank they act as facilitators, making people aware about banking schemes. They help in disbursement of pensions and also make available credit facility wherever possible. So now how will you define a self-help group? A self-help group is an intermediary. I repeat, it is a financial intermediary committee of some 10 to 25 local women between the age group 18 to 50. This is just a rough estimation. This definition I have taken from the Government of India's document. So it should suffice. So there's nothing incorrect about it. But if you want, you can have your own definitions. That is absolutely possible. But from the perspective of the Government of India, the self-help groups are a financial intermediary. They are a financial intermediary of 10 to 25 local women in the age group 18 to 50 who belong to the same social economic background. Mostly these are daily wage earners. Each member forms a small group and is used for lending within and outside the group, taking microcredits from the bank. To simplify for you, self-help groups it's an informal group. We will go into the characteristics of it easily, but for you it will suffice to know that these groups consist of 10 to 20 women in the age group 18 to 50, mostly which are daily wage earners in the village having a similar socio-economic background who contribute funds to the group. Once they have sufficient corpus of money, they use it for lending purposes or they deposit in a bank, and against that submission or against that saving, they take loans to run micro enterprises in the villages. So it's a small thing, a small group of people, a small group of us or women come together on a daily basis. They are wage earners in the 18 to 50 age group. They collect some corpus of fund, which over a period of time is used by this group to lend it out to other groups in the village, or they deposit it in the bank against they take credit. When they take credit, that credit is equally distributed amongst the women, but mostly they use it to take loans to run micro enterprises. To sum it in a small word, it is self-help groups help to microfinance the women groups in the villages. It's a simple thing. They help to microfinance, help to provide microfinance to the women in the villages. Now, why is it that these self-help groups are important? They're important for a developing country like India, and they act as catalysts of social change. They act as catalysts for social change in rural India, by empowering women, particularly those who are below the poverty line, particularly those who are below poverty line. As a result of these self-help groups, what is the result of these self-help groups? इसके social repercussions क्या होते हैं? Empowerment, credit facilities, easily made available, अगर आपको 150 शब्द लिखने होंगे तो आप ऐसे लिखेंगे, और अगर आपको 250 शब्द लिखने होंगे तो जब मैं बड़ा वाला आपको लिखवाऊंगी तो वो भी आप लिख सकते हैं। एंड अगर आपको ऐसे में लिखना है तो आप उसको वहां भी लिख सकते हैं, और अगर सोशियोलॉजी में लिखना है तो वहां भी लिख सकते हैं. So this will be the credit facilities which will be easily made available. Then, as a result of getting employment and becoming a contributing member of the family, they improve one, school enrollment, और बच्चे पढ़ने लगते हैं, हेल्थ केयर उनकी इंप्रूव होती है, दे हैव अ बेटर से इन फैमिली प्लानिंग, and maternal nutrition also improves. So as a result of the self-help groups, women feel empowered. They feel empowered because they become a contributing member economically. They are more recognized in the family. As a result of that, they are able to send their children to school, so the school enrollment increases. They're able to provide better nutrition to themselves and their kids, so the health of the family in general improves, and the maternal health improves a lot. Why I'm emphasizing maternal health for you is because in 2020, and that is why 2021 had no question on women, but आपको ऐसे उसने दे दिया 250 नंबर का, तो वो भी women पर ही था. But otherwise, in 2020, there were two questions on women. One, of course, was straight off self-help groups, microfinancing. And the second one was with geriatrics, health, and maternal health. तो जब आप maternal health लिखते हैं, तो वहां पे self-help group वापस से आ जाता है. That is why I am going into the details of it so that you know कि ये यहाँ पर ऐसा हो सकेगा. So there are spin-off or social implications of the self-help group, which helps to improve nutrition, increase school enrollment, and at the same time empower women with leadership qualities and leadership abilities. Now we should go into the details of the various kinds of self-help groups which are there. तो अगर आप देखिए तो एक योजना भी चलाई गई है, महिला किसान सशक्तिकरण परियोजना. महिला किसान सशक्तिकरण परियोजना. जैसे सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप में कहा जाता है कि कुछ एक लेवल कम से कम जो फैसिलिटेटर है या जो एनिमेटर है, मैं बाद में आपको भी लिखवाती हूँ, वो थोड़ा सा एजुकेटेड होना चाहिए. बट हमारे यहाँ जो विमेन है जिनको हम डिस्गाइज्ड अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट की कैटेगरी में लाते हैं, बिकॉज दे आर वर्किंग बट देयर कंट्रीब्यूशन इज नॉट बीइंग अकाउंटेड फॉर, ऐसी अनएम्प्लॉयड अनएजुकेटेड विमेन के लिए प्रधानमंत्री ने चलाया व्हाट इज कॉल्ड द महिला किसान सशक्तिकरण परियोजना, which has got about 3.7 million women farmers which are there. And if you look at the Indian statistics, 25% of the Indian population stays in the villages, and 1/3 of these are women, and they are below the poverty line, and they constitute 1/3 of the labor force, but their work is not being realized. Why is that? Because there are so many social constraints which work against women, and therefore the self-help groups comes as a catalyst to enhance and to make available a platform for women to move forward. I will talk about the groups which have been spoken of in the various literatures which are there. तो एक अभी जो नया ग्रुप आया है जिसने की बनाए हैं करीब करीब 13 different types of bioagents. Bioagents इस सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप का नाम है, और आप इसको ऐसे ही प्लीज लिख दीजिएगा. ये बायो एजेंट्स आपकी ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग में हेल्प कर रहे हैं. इसका नाम है सबारी, स्वराया, सवारी, और बाकी तो जैसे जो मैंने आपको कदम्बरी बताया है, देन देयर इज मावा फ्रॉम महाराष्ट्र. ये सारे आपको लिटरेचर में भी मिल जाएंगे, बट दीज आर फ्यू व्हिच आई वांट टू मेंशन बिकॉज जैसे कि you will not get जीविका anywhere because that's a part of the World Bank data. So I'm trying to tell you those which you will not find anywhere else. So ये सवारी सवारिया संघोम, तो सवारी सवारिया संघोम ने क्या किया है, 13 तरह के बायो एजेंट्स बनाए हैं जो कि ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग में अब इस्तेमाल किए जा रहे हैं. तो दे गिवन अ बिग बूस्ट टू ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग एंड दिस इज बाय द नीलारचल tribe. I of course told you about Kamdam Bashri from Kerala. And we'll talk about the Maharashtra ones a little later for you. So if we go back and look at the literature, I told you in 1970 there was something called the Seva. In 1970, Seva came, and in 1992, NABARD came up with what is called the Self-Help Group Bank Linkage Program. Self-Help Group Bank Linkage Program. Okay. So I want to give you a diagram for this, the Self-Help Group Bank Linkage Program, because I think it will be useful for you. So this is your Self-Help Group Bank Linkage Program. इसमें कहा, इसमें when 1992. What and why? What क्या था ये? Major effort towards banking service in rural areas. And why? For providing credit facilities to the poor. Who has done this? It's been done by NABARD. How has it been done? Banks allowed SHGs to open saving accounts. Then banks gave credit also to SHGs. This was given to all eligible under various categories or under various schemes. This was mainly for the weaker, unorganized sector. Okay? And it was in the formal banking sector. Okay, so when, what, why, who, and how is what is explained here. If you can't understand, just simply remember that the concept of self-help group and bank linkage program was started by NABARD in 1992, and in 1993, the RBI decided along with NABARD to permit these SHG groups to open saving bank accounts. Earlier in 1992, it was only for credit facility. In 1993, they permitted to allow them to open a saving bank account. तो दोनों तरफ से फायदा हो गया. आपको अगर लोन चाहिए तो आपको लोन भी मिलेगा, और अगर आपको लोन नहीं चाहिए तो आप अपना सेविंग बैंक पे पैसा डिपॉजिट कर दीजिए. आपको जो रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है वो मिलेगा. वही रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट आप अपने सारे मेंबर्स के बीच में डिवाइड कर सकते हैं. सो दिस वाज व्हाट हैड स्टार्टेड एज द सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप एंड द बैंक्स. तो इसके अंदर एक अपना बैंक होता है, और बैंक जो है वेरियस सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स को हेल्प करता है. So this could be 1, this could be 2, this could be 3. What is to be understood is that the self-help groups are always supported by an NGO. So these self-help groups are supported by the NGOs, or they are supported by the government organizations. तो जैसे आपके मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ विमेन एंड चाइल्ड है, इसके जो आपके विलेज लेवल पर रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स होते हैं या स्टेट लेवल के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स होते हैं, वो ये सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स बनाते हैं. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इन फॉरेस्ट, फॉर इफ वी स्पोक अबाउट सोशल फॉरेस्ट्री, आपको यू हैव टू गो बैक टू माय लेक्चर्स. उसमें मैंने बताया कि किस तरह के सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स हेल्प करते हैं कि विमेन ने बना रखे, जिसमें वो उनके पास एक डंडा रहता है जिससे वो जो आदमी ड्रिंक करते हैं उनको वो मारती हैं और उनको काम पर भेजती हैं. So that kind of self-help groups is by the forest department, because women have to suffer whenever there is a lack of resource in the family. They are the principal bread earners, और उन्हें फॉरेस्ट में जाके पेड़ काटना, तो पेड़ काट के तभी वो अपना घर चला सकते हैं. सो बिकॉज ऑफ दैट these self help groups have been formed by the forest department, and they do a lot in picking up those forest resources which can be used by the forest people, or they can be can be sold in the market and some money can be generated. Under that, the forest department of the forest ministry allocates blocks to these villages, और वहां पर सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप बनता है, जहां से कि लेडीज कभी कभी मैट्स बनाना सीख लेती हैं, कभी और फॉरेस्ट प्रोडक्ट्स बनाती है और उन्हें बेचती हैं. तो ये सोशल फॉरेस्ट्री का प्रोग्राम भी सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप से चल रहा है. Just to tell you the linkages. So self-help groups are there, but they need to be supported by an NGO which is committed to poverty alleviation programs. They're also being run by the government, as in the case of Kerala, where I told you that the state government is running this NGO. अब आपको characteristics बता दें self-help groups की. So इसकी सबसे पहली characteristic है कि ये एक इनफॉर्मल एसोसिएशन है. ये एक इनफॉर्मल एसोसिएशन है which come together to improve their living conditions or economic conditions, which come together to improve their economic or living conditions. तो सबसे पहला इनका क्या खासियत है? ये एक इनफॉर्मल एसोसिएशन है. दूसरा, दे आर सेल्फ गवर्न्ड एंड पीयर कंट्रोल्ड. तो जो 10-15 औरतें होती हैं वो सब की सब इक्वल लेवल की होती हैं, क्योंकि सबका सोशो इकोनॉमिक बैकग्राउंड एक जैसा तरह का होता है. दे आर सेल्फ गवर्न्ड एंड पीयर कंट्रोल्ड विथ सिमिलर सोशो इकोनॉमिक बैकग्राउंड, with similar socio-economic background. They have come together they collectively fight poverty, illiteracy, lack of skills, and lack of formal credit. The notion behind self-help groups is, of course, self-help. You need to be Atmanirbhar. So self-help to encourage self-employment, and poverty elevation. So here are the characteristics of the self-help group. First, informal association. It is self-run. There is no leadership here, but it's a peer group of the same age group with the same socio-economic background. They come together to develop their skills and to fight poverty, illiteracy, lack of skill, and lack of formal credit. Please write that, lack of formal credit. दे आर सेल्फ हेल्प मतलब आत्मनिर्भर है और इंकरेज करते हैं सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट टू हेल्प पॉवर्टी एलिवेशन. Amongst these groups there is something called the animator. एक एनिमेटर होता है या आप उसको एक फैसिलिटेटर कह सकते हैं. ये एनिमेटर और फैसिलिटेटर एक लिंक की तरह काम करता है between the NGOs and the self-help group, between the government departments and the self-help group, between the bank and the self-help group. And sometimes they acquire certain leadership qualities and fight for the Gram Panchayat elections also. So that facilitator or animator has one qualification, that she is more educated than the others. So there's a case study which has been done by a Bangalore-based NGO on the Meena tribes of Rajasthan, and they speak about Meena, and she says that, and they've written in that case study, she says that I am so and so, and I am the wife of so and so, and she's written her name there. Needless to say that she's able to introduce herself, because she says, as a result of becoming a facilitator in the self-help group, I have acquired these skills and self-confidence to be able to talk to you. Then she says that she was chosen as a facilitator because उसने 10th पास किया है. So there's a lot of hope for all of us. अगर आप 10th पास करके आप एक सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप के फैसिलिटेटर बन सकते हैं, तो आप इतना सारा पढ़कर आए तो आराम से बन सकते हैं और बहुत सारे सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स को कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं. इनफैक्ट every person who comes and becomes a part of the government of India should see to it कि self help groups की कितनी मदद हो सकती है, उसको पूरी तरह मदद करना चाहिए. Anyways, that is utopia. We can talk about it till tomorrow, but nothing would change. Sufficient to say कि ये facilitator और animator, इनका linkage acts like a link pin with the various agencies. क्योंकि वो पढ़ा लिखा है इसलिए उसको ये दिया गया है. Now what are the functions of the self-help groups? इसके function में सबसे पहला आया है to build functional capacity. To build functional capacity of the poor and marginalized. For employment and income generation. उसको पास क्या है, उसको एक फंक्शनल कैपेसिटी बनानी है. मतलब वो जो ग्रुप बनता है उसको क्लियर होना चाहिए कि हम ये काम कर सकते हैं. अगर नहीं कर सकते उसको ट्रेनिंग देनी चाहिए. तो इसको एक फंक्शनल कैपेसिटी बनानी चाहिए फॉर द पर्पज, किसके लिए, पुअर और मार्जिनलाइज के लिए, जिसमें से वो भी एक है, for employment and income generation. So some women can come together to make masks like they did. Earlier, these people whom I have spoken of is a self-help group from Orissa, जो ये मास्क बनाने में लग गए. और पहले वो क्या करते थे, वो स्कूल ड्रेसेस बच्चों की बनाया करते थे. तो टेलरिंग इज वेरी वेरी कॉमन फॉर द सेल्फ-हेल्प ग्रुप्स. So they should result in functional capacity of the poor and marginalized for employment and income generation. First is that. Second is to resolve conflicts. Through collective leadership. And mutual discussion. So these self-help groups are a power behind each member. So suppose that the woman comes in conflict with anyone else, whether the family members or outside. The self-help groups stand together to resolve those conflicts, even within the group, because it is collective leadership. Within the group, decisions are taken with consonance and issues are resolved. Third is that they provide collateral free loans at market rates. Collateral free loans at market rates. Then, this is the most important when we talk of microfinancing. Then they worked as a collective guarantee system. Collective guarantee system for the group. तो इसमें क्या होता है? All the poor come together, they collect money, they deposit it in the bank. तो अगर 10 से 15 लोग हैं तो 15 लोग सारा अपना पैसा जो उन्होंने इकट्ठा किया उसको एक साथ बैंक में एक अकाउंट में डिपॉजिट करते हैं, और वहां पे डिपॉजिट करने के बाद उनको इसके अगेंस्ट लोन मिल सकता है अगर वो लोन चाहते हैं. अगर लोन नहीं चाहते तो उनको क्रेडिट मिलता है, मतलब रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट कुछ मिलता है, और उस लोन के साथ वो एक माइक्रो एंटरप्राइज चला सकते हैं. जैसे कि टेलरिंग मशीन खरीद सकते हैं, कुछ अपना सिलाई बुनाई कढ़ाई करना चाहते हैं, कोई मशीन. कलेक्टिव गारंटी सिस्टम में सबके संग एक साथ इन्वॉल्व होके बैंक से लोन लेते हैं, नहीं तो सेविंग बैंक अकाउंट खोलते हैं और अपनी स्थिति को इंप्रूव करते हैं. And last and the most important is, the fifth point is that they are most effective mechanism. They are the most effective mechanism for dealing with microfinance services, for dealing with microfinance services for the poor. तो गरीब के लिए माइक्रो फाइनेंस प्रोवाइड करने का सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप के अलावा कोई और ऑल्टरनेटिव अभी समझ नहीं आता. इट इज कंसिडर्ड टू बी द मोस्ट इफेक्टिव फॉर प्रोवाइडिंग माइक्रो फाइनेंस टू द पुअर. तो अगर आप इनके फंक्शंस देख लीजिए, पहले फंक्शनल कैपेसिटी ये बनाते हैं, रिजॉल्विंग कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स कलेक्टिवली थ्रू म्यूचुअल डिस्कशन, कोलैटरल फ्री लोन्स एट मार्केट रेट प्रोवाइड होता है. उसके बाद ये कलेक्टिव गारंटी सिस्टम बनाते हैं ग्रुप के लिए, जहां पैसा इकट्ठा होता है, वो बैंक में डिपॉजिट होता है, उसके अगेंस्ट लोन लिया जाता है और लोन से कुछ माइक्रो एंटरप्राइज स्टार्ट की जाती है. सो दे आर द मोस्ट इफिशिएंट वे फॉर प्रोवाइडिंग माइक्रो फाइनेंस टू द पुअरेस्ट ऑफ द पुअर इन द विलेजेस. अब ये पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट आपका कहां से आया कि सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप बनना चाहिए? तो एक थे मिस्टर डॉक्टर सी रंगराजन. यू मस्ट हैव हर्ड अबाउट हिम. He was asked to write a report on what is called the financial inclusion in the country. It's called the financial inclusion in the country. Financial inclusion in the country का मतलब है कि how do you make people who are below the poverty line, the poorest of the poor, how do you enable them? This came in the face of government schemes reportedly failing, because the amount of money which was being dispersed through the government schemes was being eaten away by so many middlemen that the poor remained poor. तो को पूछा गया कि आप एक ऐसी रिपोर्ट बनाएंगे जिसके द्वारा ये पता चल सके कि हम फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन को कैसे बढ़ा सकते हैं. तो अकॉर्डिंग टू हिम हमारे देश की समस्या क्या क्या थी? फर्स्ट वाज लैक ऑफ कोलैटरल सिक्योरिटी. लैक ऑफ कोलैटरल सिक्योरिटी मतलब हम लोन तो ले लें, उसके अगेंस्ट हमारे साथ खड़ा होने वाला कौन है? दैट वाज लैक ऑफ कोलैटरल सिक्योरिटी. सेकेंड वाज पुअर क्रेडिट अब्सॉर्प्शन. अब हमने पैसे ले लिए, क्योंकि मुझे कोई कारखाना चलाना है, पर मेरे पास तो कोई है ही नहीं, तो वो पैसा मैंने किस में इस्तेमाल कर लिया, बच्चे की शादी में इस्तेमाल कर लिया, बच्चे के मुंडन में इस्तेमाल कर लिया, या घर में कुछ और सोशल फंक्शन हो गया उसमें इस्तेमाल कर लिया. दैट इज हाउ इंडियन फैमिलीज रन. दे टेक लोन्स एंड दे कीप repaying the loan in through the entire life. तो पुअर क्रेडिट एब्जॉर्प्शन का मतलब हुआ पैसा ले लिया पर उसको किसी काम में हम लगा नहीं पाए. या तो स्कूटर खरीद लिया या तो गाड़ी खरीद ली, उसको हमने अपने मनी जेनरेशन में इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट्स के लिए हम उसको इस्तेमाल नहीं कर पाए क्योंकि हमारे पास कोई था ही नहीं. सो देयर इज पुअर क्रेडिट एब्जॉर्प्शन. देन द थर्ड इज inadequate reach of the institutions. Inadequate reach of the institutions. अब बैंक ने कोई भी स्कीम बना ली, मान लीजिए कोई भी बैंक की स्कीम बनी, उसको हम उस गरीब गांव में ले कैसे जाएंगे? अगर एक पोस्ट मास्टर है वो लिखकर चिट्ठी कुछ बता देगा, पोस्ट मास्टर हिमसेल्फ is not a very literate person. So how can bank reach the poorest of the poor? So that is the point of inadequate reach of the institutions, of banking institutions and government institutions. Government की स्कीम बनी पर उसको यूज कौन करता है? ओनली मिडिल मैन, क्योंकि वही गरीब लोगों को लेके आते हैं. Like for example, in railways, if by chance somebody falls from the train and dies, उसको immediately 8 लाख रुपीस मिलते हैं. वो 8 लाख रुपीस उसको कब मिलते हैं? जबकि वो एक वैलिड पैसेंजर होता है और वो हमारे रेलवे क्लेम्स ट्रिब्यूनल में जाता है, जहां पे कि उसके नियरेस्ट एंड डियरेस्ट जो किन होते हैं वो सबमिट करते हैं और उसके बाद हम गवर्नमेंट जो है डिसाइड करती है, ट्रिब्यूनल डिसाइड करती है कि उसको 8 लाख रुपीस मिले. नाउ most of the people in the villages are not aware about the system. Then they don't know how to come forward to the RCT. Over a period of time, it was realized that out of the 8 lakhs which is being paid now, this is from 2014. Earlier, it was 3 lakh rupees. Whatever money had to be given to and had to reach the poor was actually being siphoned off by the middlemen and the lawyers. To put a stop to that, the government started freezing the money disbursement to these people. And then there were various kinds of other checks and balances which were put in place. To cut the long story short, whatever the government proposes has to reach to the people at large. So Sri Rangarajan came up with the concept that financial inclusion is at stake in India because there is inadequate reach of the institution. And then he said that there is an absolute weak community network. There is a weak community network. बैंक गरीबों के पास जाता नहीं है, वो वहां बड़े बाबू बन के बैठा रहता है, तो किसी भी प्रकार से जो इंफॉर्मेशन सरकार की है वो गरीबों के पास पहुंच नहीं पा रही है. अब इस रोल में सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स का क्या योगदान है? तो सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स जो होते हैं वो बेस्ट, they are considered to be the most popular sound community network. They are the most sound community network in the villages. So women are most talkative when they go to fill water in the villages. So पानी भरने जाते हैं, गाय चराने जाते हैं, या कपड़ा सुखाने जाते हैं, या फील्ड्स में धान काटने जाते हैं या धान बोने जाते हैं, उस समय उनकी जो कम्युनिटी नेटवर्क है उसकी कोई पैरेलल नहीं मिल सकती है. So they say that the self-help groups have the sound community network of the villages. So most important for credit linkage is this community network, and it helps in providing credit and helps in poverty elevation. They also help to build a social capacity among the women for greater voice in society. अगर आपके पास पैसा आ गया और आप किसी भी प्रकार से अपने घर की समस्याओं का समाधान कर रहे हैं, तो इसका मतलब कि आप वहां पर ज्यादा एक्सेप्टेबल हो गए. You have a bigger say in the day-to-day running of your household. So this process has empowered women through financial independence. Through financial independence, the multiplicative effects. फाइनेंशियल इंडिपेंडेंस से औरतों को क्या क्या मिला है? एक तो सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट, which leads to better family leads to better family conditions. It leads to improved literacy. ये शब्द आप बार बार लिखिएगा, मतलब आपके आंसर में कहीं ना कहीं से आ जानी चाहिए. Improved literacy, better health, and self-care. So self-employment leads to improved literacy, better health, better self-care for women. So self-help groups are considered to be very, very important so far as women are concerned. So like I told you, 1970, it was Seva. It was Self-Employment Women's Association, where women were got together and they started doing a lot of stuff to empower the small groups in the villages. This was an NGO which was started. इनका ईरा भट्ट नाम था इनका, जिन्होंने ये सेवा को स्टार्ट किया था. और उसके बाद नाबार्ड केम विथ द लिंकेज ग्रीन, SHG लिंकेज स्कीम इन 1992. और फिर 1993 में आरबीआई ने कहा कि हम इन सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप को सेविंग अकाउंट खोलने देंगे. मेरे इसको पढ़ाने के बाद आपको कहीं और से कोई चीज पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, ऐसा मुझे लगता है. ऑफ कोर्स यू आर फ्री टू गो वेरेवर, बट आई एम स्टिल सेइंग कि आई वांट यू टू नो दीज पॉइंट्स. अब इसके बाद इनको क्या मिल गया? इनको मिल गया माइक्रो फाइनेंस फॉर द प्रोजेक्ट्स. फिर 1999 में गवर्नमेंट केम अप विथ अ स्कीम कॉल्ड द स्वर्ण जयंती ग्राम, द स्वर्ण जयंती ग्राम स्व रोजगार योजना. Swayam Jayanti Gram Sarv Rozgar Yojana, which was a big flop. It didn't work at all. You cannot write that. You just say that the government of India came up with a program in 1999 called the Swayam Jayanti Gram Swaraj Rozgar Yojana, which then provided, and it had the same thing, that it was going to provide them with microfinance units and help to empower the women in the villages. And when this failed, which you will not write, you will just say that this came in 1999. And ultimately, in 2011, we come up with that NRLM, which continues till date. और NRLM का आज की डेट पर जो आउटस्टैंडिंग डेट है वो 6.5 billion है. So I don't know how good or bad are the self-help groups. We'll talk about it a little later. But they have an outstanding debt of 6.5 billion, and which is about 6.5% of NPA, which means non-performing assets. So they've written in literature that otherwise banks have an NPA for almost 10.2%. So ये self-help group का 6.5% तो bank bear ही कर सकता है. Don't write that. But when we look at the shortfalls of the self-help groups, we must know that it has 6.5 billion as outstanding debt by the self-help groups. अब ये सब चीजों के द्वारा self-help group द्वारा हमें क्या क्या बेनिफिट मिल चुका है? एक तो पहले आपको मिल गई है सोशल इंटेग्रिटी, और ये सब औरतों को मिला है. So men have been left like that. No, they are self-help groups of men also. But because we are talking of women, we will only talk of women. And not only that, 80%, I'm sorry, just please bear with me, 90% of the self-help groups are women run. You have to understand, we are the privileged lots, and therefore we get all the benefits of the world. This is why we are in this sorry state of affairs. Don't put that. 90% of the self-help groups are in relation to women. So only about 10% of them are with men. And because they are the major source for microfinance for women, we are going to talk only about them in the context of women. So when I say that they give a social integrity, they, through their collective efforts, through their collective efforts. They help to combat dowry and alcoholism. All right. They help to bring about gender equity. And I want to tell you that in today's society, gender equality can go to the dogs, but what we need is gender equity. We need our presence in the society, and we have to be earning members to be equity only alone can determine your equality. That should be very, very clear. If you're not standing on your own feet, nobody can give you the equality that you might cry out for. So your equality will come from equity. So gender equity in my concept is more important than any kind of gender equality. आपको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया ने कितना इक्वालिटी दे दिया है और आपको उस इक्वालिटी में से क्या मिलता है? So if there is a concept of gender equity, it is the most important concept. So gender equity क्या करता है? It empowers women. Helps to inculcate leadership qualities. And helps them to fight elections. So खाली 12 MP अभी 12 I think in this entire cabinet there are only 12 ministers which are females. So if we are going to fight elections at the lower level, we can come up and fight more elections at the higher level. And you never know, we can get a bill for reservation of women and we might make it just big in the parliament. I'm waiting for that day, so can you. Anyway, so gender equity brings about leadership qualities, empowers women and helps to bring them to fight the elections. Then they have a multiplier effect. Multiplier effect वही जो मैंने आपको बताया है. Better literacy, better health. Literacy, health, and high social status. आपके सेल्फ एस्टीम को भी बढ़ाता है. Then the financial help. It helps you to take credit and run enterprises. Then they help to improve the efficiency of the government by eradicating corruption through social audits. They come up with what is called an alternate source of employment. They lead to participation of households in decision making. They lead to better housing and health. Better housing and health of what is called the better housing and health of the participative households, not the client household. Participative household. मतलब जो लोग इस सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप में हैं, उनकी हेल्थ और उनका हाउसिंग इंप्रूव होता है. ऐसा नहीं है कि जो क्लाइंट है उसका घर इंप्रूव होता है, क्लाइंट का नहीं. जो पार्टिसिपेट कर रहा है सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप में, उसका हेल्थ, उसकी मोर्टैलिटी रेट्स, उसकी लिटरेसी रेट्स बढ़ती हैं और बेटर होती हैं. And of course, overall, they give you a banking literacy which could not have been made available otherwise. So they give you banking literacy. This is very important for women because they are never ever exposed to how to save money and how to be able to carry out their work. So that really helps them. Now we want to talk about what is it that are the drawbacks of the scheme. The weaknesses of the social help groups are the members of the group come from the poorest of families. Their empowerment is not satisfactory. Many of the activities which are taken by the social health group are in dependence with an NGO. Suppose the NGO withdraws support or the government support withdraws support. और ऐसा अक्सर होता है कि एक स्टाफ या एक ऑफिसर बहुत एक्टिवली इन्वॉल्व होता है सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप में, तो उसका ट्रांसफर हो जाता है, तो वो सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप डिसॉल्व कर जाता है. फिर देयर इज अ लैक ऑफ क्वालिफाइड पर्सनल्स to support the self-help group. Lack of resources, lack of training, lack of ideas of how to move forward. These are some of the weaknesses of the self-help groups. The challenges that they face are lack of knowledge. They have a patriarchal mindset. This is not only true for self-help groups, this is true for the whole of society. These are certain general marks which I'm telling you here. Lack of rural banking facilities. अब अगर आप सोचिए कि 1.2 लाख बैंक ब्रांचेस अवेलेबल हैं 6 लाख विलेजेस के लिए, मगर over 6 lakh villages you have only 1.2 bank branches. How do you think that they can cater to the needs of the people? So there are poor banking facilities which are available. Then sustainability becomes almost an individual effort. तो एक कोई ग्रुप का बहुत एक्टिव होता है, बाकी सब उसके संग लग जाते हैं और ये सस्टेनेबिलिटी फिर बहुत मुश्किल हो जाती है. There is no security for the self-help groups. I can just stop going from tomorrow to attend the meetings of the self-help group and the group will fall through because my contribution will not come. Mostly self-help groups have a weekly contribution of 25 rupiah or 15 rupiah, which they collect together over a period of 3 months or 4 months, which then they go to and deposit in the bank, or they lend it out to others on 2% rate of interest. और फिर उससे जो पैसा मिलता है वो अपने घर लेके जाते हैं. तो वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ वेरी वेरी माइन्यूट, वेरी लिटिल ऑफ मनी इन द मार्केट so far as these are concerned. So what are the measures which will make them more effective? First, the role of the facilitator or the promoter becomes very, very important. So if I'm the educated one, if I'm the NGO, if I'm the government department, the self-help group will need your support right till the end or till such time that it becomes self-sustaining. We have to expand the SHG movement, which is very prominent in the South, but the North and the Northeastern states have been deprived about it and they are not able to move forward. There should be a rapid expansion of the financial infrastructure. There should be a rapid expansion of financial infrastructure. And when we talk about these, we should look at the IT department, which can help us. All the communication facilities that we have, IT-enabled communication will help us to spread the knowledge, and banking institutions can reach to the doorstep of the people. Like for example, in Andhra Pradesh, almost all the districts are disbursing pension directly into the account of the pensioner without any intermediaries in between. And this has been made possible through e-payment and e-banking systems. And all this is possible because now you have your own cards and you have your own Aadhaar, which is the basis for finding out who you are and what are your statistics. So not only does it cut down layers of corruption and layers of delay, it reaches out to the people who are directly responsible for it. So the more IT applications we use, the more banking systems can spread throughout the country and these self-help groups will get the money or the credit that they need. Then we not only should now concentrate, we are saying now 25% of the population of India लिव्स इन द विलेजेस। जब मैं पढ़ाई कर रही थी तो ये 70% था, आज ये 25% है। इस 25% में से एक तिहाई, 1/3 आर women. But what about the poor who are in the urban areas or the semi-urban areas? So we should have self-help groups which target these people too. Because I think that we will get results from the urban poor more than we are getting from the rural poor. Reason being, they are more awakened, they are already educated. वो अपना गांव छोड़ के आए हैं यहाँ जीविका बनाने के लिए, तो वो ज्यादा enterprising है. Already because they left the village and come here, they cannot be complacent, they have to keep working. तो अगर self help groups इनके बनाए गए तो हमारे देश की ज्यादा मदद हो सकती है. They need constant monitoring not only by the concerned banking institutions but the NGOs who are involved in it. और जो facilitator है उसका ये रोल है कि वो लिंकिंग बन के इनके वर्किंग को मॉनिटर करे और इन्हें बताए. Then there needs to be a need based approach. Whatever fund that you are giving should be in collaboration with a scheme which is already there in place. For that, you need training and personnel round the clock to empower these people. अब आपको अगर सिलाई कढ़ाई नहीं आती और मैं जबरदस्ती आपको एक मशीन खरीद के दे दूं तो काम नहीं बनेगा. सिमिलरली मैं आपको बहुत सारा लोन दे दूं एक पावर जनरेटर लगाने के लिए अपने खेत में, पर अगर आप मल्टीपल क्रॉपिंग नहीं करेंगे और एक ही क्रॉप करेंगे और वो भी फेल हो जाएगा तो आपकी कोई हेल्प नहीं हो पाएगी. So whatever is to be done, the first most important point is that there should be a training of the personnel. And in my perception, there should be a convergence of resources. When I talk of resources, I mean intellectual, मतलब knowledge, किसी का knowledge, किसी की skill, किसी की मेहनत, or the workforce which has to be put into place, and social convergence. Women should come together for each other, not fall out, and in that somebody has to take a one level up so that they can guide these others. So convergence again becomes very, very important. अब केस स्टडीज में बार बार आपको मैं बता रही हूँ कि ये एक जो मैंने बायो एजेंट आपको बताया ये एक नया है, अदरवाइज बार बार ये कुदम्ब आश्री केरला में बताते हैं जो कि 1998 में स्टैब्लिश हुआ. इस समय इसमें 4.4 मिलियन विमेन इन्वॉल्व है और 3 एरियाज में ये काम करते हैं. एक है माइक्रो क्रेडिट, एक है एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप और एक है एम्पावरमेंट. और इनके थ्री लेड स्ट्रक्चर. They work in 3 areas. One is entrepreneurship. Second is microcredit. And third is empowerment, which means social empowerment basically. और इनके तीन स्ट्रक्चर हैं. They are 3 layered. इनके 3 layered में क्या क्या है? सबसे पहले जो है एक है कम्युनिटी डेवलपमेंट सोसाइटी. कम्युनिटी डेवलपमेंट सोसाइटी, उसके ऊपर दे हैव व्हाट इज कॉल्ड द, पहले इनका एक नेबरहुड ग्रुप है, नेबरहुड ग्रुप. फिर इनका है एरिया डेवलपमेंट ग्रुप और फिर है इनका कम्युनिटी डेवलपमेंट विच इज लिंक्ड टू द लोकल गवर्नमेंट. एंड आई टोल्ड यू दैट इट इज अ स्टेट रन गवर्नमेंट थिंग. फिर महाराष्ट्र में देयर इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड द MAAVM. MAVM. I'll take it up so that you can see it. It is called the Mahila आर्थिक विकास, महिला आर्थिक विकास महामंडल. इट इज द महिला आर्थिक विकास महामंडल. तो यहां क्या हुआ कि सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स को बहुत क्रेडिट मिलने लगा, इनके पास बहुत काम था, so they couldn't understand how to make use of the resources which they were being given. तो इसलिए इन्होंने सरकार से मदद मांगी और एक कम्युनिटी मैनेज्ड रिसोर्स सेंटर, जिसको हम कहते हैं CMRC, कम्युनिटी मैनेज्ड रिसोर्स सेंटर, चालू किया गया ये सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स को मॉनिटर करने के लिए और देखने के लिए कि जो भी फाइनेंशियल हेल्प इन्हें चाहिए और जो रिसोर्सेज इन्हें मिले वो ठीक से इनके द्वारा इस्तेमाल किए जाए. This brings us an end to the self-help groups. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow if I get time and if the others let me do it. Why the age of marriage should come to 21 and why shouldn't women marry at 18 and men be eligible for marriage only at 21? Are they lesser mortals than we are or are we more intelligent than they are? And the whole question of if you get married, are you really happy? So we will talk about marriage. We will talk about sexual harassment in workplaces. I will also go and take a class for you, which is be exclusively for rape. We'll talk about the Mathura case. We will also talk about the Visakha guidelines. We'll talk about the other cases which have been highlighted from time to time. That is, I hope to be able to complete this in the next 3 classes. For now, it is self-help groups for you, and it will come in one form or the other in 2022. That rest assured. Thank you so much for your time. Good night.